What's up, everybody? It's Chris, and I'm here from Santiago, Chile, and we're going to be talking about some of the things that are going on in Chile and, of course, all around the world. We're going to be broadcasting this on Facebook Live and, of course, in some that I've been part of. So I want to get right to it. Here in Chile, if you're an English speaker and you want to know what's happening and you don't really understand the news in Spanish, well, the only big things that happened in Chile today were uh, out on the west side of Santiago. There was a big explosion of gas on the Maipú section of Santiago. That's out in a big factory called Gasco. Interesting name. And they had a big explosion. No idea if anybody got hurt or killed out there. I don't think they did because I would be reading about it right now. But that was a big story today. Another cute story before we get into the obvious international stuff that we all know about what's happening over in the Middle East is one other cute story that happened today. There was here in Chile, they have these passes for students who want to take the bus. It's not like in the United States, or I don't know what it's like in England or other countries, but there are no big yellow buses taking kids to school. And I know some high school kids here would be just floored when they realize that some high school kids even drive to school. It blows their mind, but they probably already know it because they watch Stranger Things or something, so they know what's going on up there. But just the idea of having a free bus coming to take everybody to school, something we took for granted. So the government does provide what they call school passes. Now again, it's not even free. It's like a discounted pass. They still got to pay like, I don't know, the equivalent of like 50 cents or something like that. But still, even just for me, paying anything, it just blows my mind. So the story is coming out of the southern city of Concepcion, which is on the coast right toward the lower to midsection of Chile. And what happened was, okay, yeah. What happens is a lot of kids, they're kids. They use these passes when they're not supposed to use the passes. It's supposed to be only to and from school. Okay, who cares? I mean, there's kids that get on the bus and they just say, excuse me, and they just ask for free. The chauffeur usually 9 times out of 10 the chauffeur doesn't really care because he was a student too. So he's he was he lets it happen, lets him come on, but usually it's crowded. And it's usually you got to be in your school uniform. And hey, they wear school uniforms down here, which is something I like, but that's another debate for a different subject, different time. So what happened was this student today, I guess, got on. I don't know how old he was, but apparently got on, and the driver didn't like that he was using his pass when he wasn't supposed to use the pass. I don't know if he was getting out of school early today or something, but he drove the kid to the police station and made a complaint. How would you like to be the other people on that bus? Oh my God. Okay, now you got people coming on these buses in Santiago where they're like what they call choros, where they're really kind of aggressive, violent, intimidating, and they'll come on, and if they don't even say, may I pass or something. No, they just come on, and they know if you give them any lip about it, they're going to say what, and they're going to pull out a knife or God only knows what else. And so for this driver to make such a big scene about this, come on, man, it's just a kid. We all did stupid things when we were kids and teenagers, and geez, let it go, bro, let it go. So Anyway, so that was some of the big stories in Chile. I don't know if any other stories that are happening down here. Let me just get a look. So if anybody that speaks English, oh, here's an interesting story. Getting right to what we're going to be talking about with the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Hats off to the president of Chile. I don't always agree with him. I'm independent, but President Bort got a military flight. I don't know what kind of military airplane it was. Don't ask. So he arranged a flight to get Chilean citizens out of Israel for obviously, the obvious reasons. Those who are in Israel, civilians, get out. So he arranged it. But the Palestinian community here in Chile, which is about 400,000 people, 400,000 Palestinian or Palestinian ancestry, live in Chile. Sadly, they all live in the Patronato district. That's a joke. Patronato district is a clothing district in Recoleta. Okay, so yeah, okay, I got nothing against Palestinians, but we'll get to them very soon. But apparently there was a Palestinian Chilean resident in Israel, and Israel blocked them from getting on the flight. Now, at first you're thinking, well, that's kind of a douchebag move. What's that all about? They're, Chilean resident. It doesn't look like they're a Chilean citizen, and it doesn't look like they were born in Chile or anything like that. They're just a resident, not any person that's been living. I don't know how long they've been living here, but the Palestinians are all up in arms here in Chile about not permitting this person, I don't know if it's a woman or a man, from coming to Chile on this humanitarian flight. My guess is, they're not a citizen of the country of Chile, and they were born in, I don't know, the Palestinian territories or Israel or what have you, but they did not permit any, I guess, non-citizens. Now, excuse me, I'm drinking tea. I suppose I'd like to know if there are any Israeli residents of Chile that got to go on that flight. But we'll get to this topic. And I know there's a lot of podcasts and news broadcasts and pundits and everybody talking about this. And I'm trying to make this more interesting and more appealing to people. Like I said, in Chile, there are about 100,000 people who live in Chile who are Palestinian. There's about 175,000 Jewish people living in Chile. It's a big difference. It's almost that's under half of, So there's more Palestinians than there are Jewish people. That was surprising to me. And to be completely fair, I've never heard of any Jewish people or Palestinian people having problems living together in Chile. So that's a good thing. Never heard of any problems with that. One of the bigger problems here in Chile is with the south of Chile, with some of the methods that some of the militant arm of the Mapuche people use. And we'll get to that because there's a lot of similarities between what some of the militant Mapuches do in the south of Chile. The Mapuches are the indigenous people of a certain sector of the south of Chile, Navajo, Cherokee, Seminoles, and barbaric strategies to try to reclaim some of their land that they say is theirs and not the country of Chile's. But we'll get in a little bit later. Right now, what I want to talk about is, okay, this is not exactly directly related to Chile, but obviously it's something that's on everybody's mind, is with the conflict with Israel and Palestine. And a lot of people, what troubles me is, I don't have a dog in this fight. I really don't. But I do have a preference. And my preference is peace. My preference is stability. My preference is safety and security. It's my preference and fairness. Uh, to begin with, people, what's the big argument? Let's start with the Palestinian side. The Palestinians, that is their land. They were promised that after the fall of the Ottoman Empire, after the British Mandate was declared. They were promised that land, and that was their land. Period. End of discussion. Finished. And ever since then, they have been fighting a guerrilla war and a terrorist war. I don't want to say that we're terrorists, but somebody's got to say it. So to achieve, whatever means necessary, and there's people protesting in New York and Europe and all over saying whatever means necessary, and we saw that whatever means were shown. I'm not down with that. So people say, well, geez, it's, they came into existence in the late 40s. It's been almost, we're getting close to 100 years now, almost. We're like 80 years of the existence of the country of Israel, the country of Israel. Now, what the protesters say is that, okay, Israel is occupying our land. It's an apartheid. Fair. Could be. I'll give you that. Let's take a look at that. They say, a lot of territories are being taken, and a lot of Jewish settlements are being claimed and things like that. Okay, in the West Bank and the Golan Heights, but not in the Gaza Strip. They gave back the Gaza Strip a few years back. But we've seen what they've done with that. So if you go back to history, people say, well, it's been, 80 years, come on, it's Israel. Ciao, let's go. No, time has no reference here. Time has no reference. Doesn't matter if it was 50 years or 100 years or 1,000 years. That is our land. Well, if that's the argument, if that's going to be the argument that time is not of any kind of importance, then we can go back. And now we're free to go back, because that land, that whole strip of land, the Holy Land, I think it was called Katan or Kalan, but it was also it was called Judea. It was called Judea for many years. And the Jewish people, I hate to say it, and somebody's got to say it, because if you say these things and the people on the left do not like it, the squeaky wheel always gets the grease, and they're the loudest, and so they make the biggest sound or noise. The Jews have been living in that area since the Exodus out of Egypt. So we're talking long before Islam was even formed by Muhammad. So they've been living there a lot longer. Now, in the, I think it was in 635 AD, there were many Arab invasions into Judea. Now, they would take it back and go back and forth and all those kind of things. But before that, just a kind of a fun fact, Palestine was a word given to that area, not by Arabs or not by Palestinians. Well, I guess Palestinians, but it was a word given to that area by the Roman Empire, because they wanted to change it from Judea. They wanted to erase the idea that Jews were the ones living there. So they immediately changed the name to Palestine. Just it wasn't a country yet. And depending on who you ask, Palestine has never been a country. It's been a territory. But they've never had a president or anything like that. So the problem is, I think it was 635, after the fall of Roman Empire, all that kind of stuff. Well, not exactly at the same time, but a lot of Arabs invaded from the east, from Mesopotamia and all that kind of stuff. Current day Iraq, Iran, Jordan, those kind of things. And they destroyed the Jewish temple, and they built a beautiful mosque on top of that Jewish temple, which you can still see today in Jerusalem. So the idea that it has always been historically Palestinian Arab land is not exactly true, is it? So now from then on, Jewish people have been present in that area forever. It's never changed. There have been immigration from there to, and mostly to Europe, after the Middle Ages and whatnot. But Jews have always been living there in that area alongside Arabs, the ones who are ancestors of the conquistador. Well, that was good. Conquistadors, the conquerors from the east, the Arab conquerors. Now they've been living together for years. Now the land has gone back and forth and back and forth, and the Arabs had control of it for a long time until the Catholic Church decided to implement the Crusades, and they said, we got to get that land back because it's a historic Jewish land, but Christian land, really, because Catholic Church is not a representation of the Jewish people. But the Catholic Church wanted to get back the Holy Land and not have a dominant one religion government in that land, and that was it. You couldn't practice the Jewish faith or the Christian faith or what have you when you're in an Islamic country. Now, especially in the 635 and so on. So they had all the Crusades. The Crusades were barbaric. Yes, we know, but the Arabs were barbaric too. So let's not pretend they weren't. So, but from that time to World War I, the Ottoman Empire had control of it, which was mostly an Islamic entity, from what I understand. And then the Allies during World War apparently made some kind of agreement with the Arabs living in that area to revolt against the Islamic government, the Ottoman Empire. And in exchange, they would just give them some land. I think we said the same thing in Vietnam after World War II. But apparently, the Jewish people thought that was not fair. And so they said that wasn't fair. And so they wanted land too, because, they lived there first, but they also lived there with them. And I'm not going to say all Arabs need to get out of Israel. No, they're free to live there too. And they're free to form their own country. That's fine. But apparently Israel, when they wanted to form their country, the Palestinians and the Arab Palestinians said, no, that's all of it is ours, all of it. And the Jewish people were like, no, that's not fair. We're going to form a country with our beliefs and our people, and we'll let you guys form your own country too. And that was it. But the Arabs didn't want that. They wanted everything. And it's worth considering that when you see these people protesting in New York and Chicago and France, they don't understand that Israel right now is the only democracy in the Middle East. Yay, in Gaza. Try being, two men wanting to adopt a child and living an LGBT lifestyle under an Arab nation. Not going to happen. So when I see people saying, queers for Palestinians, careful what it's for there, boss. They're throwing gay people off roofs in Islamic countries. Okay, so Jordan, Syria, Iran, Iraq, all those countries, they're either monarchies or dictatorships. So careful what you wish for. At least, in Israel, they have elections, president elections. I forgot the name of the Congress. I forgot the name of their Congress. It's a kind of a weird name. They have general elections. The Palestinians don't. The last election they had was when, I think it was like almost 10 years ago, when Gaza was given back to the Palestinians. They elected the radical group Hamas, which is a very militant, violent group. And they said, we want them to be the government. Now, say what you will if that was an honest election, but they elect them, and they haven't had an election since. Same thing with the Palestinians in the West Bank. Even the PLO with Yasser Arafat, they never had free elections either. But you have in Israel, you have Shimon Peres, Benjamin Netanyahu. They all have free elections at least. And you can be gay in Israel. You can be Arab in Israel. You can be Islamic in Israel. You can be free in Israel. So you really can't in Gaza. And let's talk about the Gaza right now, because they're saying, well, Israel is committing war crimes and right now, bombing the hell out of Gaza. Yeah. Now, let's talk about that. Fortunately, there's enough people now that are starting to read the handwriting on the wall and realize that Gaza and Hamas, the Palestinians that support them, take their rockets from the Hamas organization. They have like their headquarters under a hospital because they know. And so they have these portable rocket launching trucks, and they just pull up right in front of a hospital or a school or wherever, a daycare center, fire the rockets, and then Israel gets it on the radar and they fire back. Boom, they hit a hospital or a school. And then Hamas joyfully parades the dead bodies in front of the cameras. And what's really interesting is Israel knows this, and they try to drop leaflets in the area, and they say, we're going to bomb the shit out of this area here. You guys get out. And Hamas doesn't permit their people to get out. They say, you have to stay in your homes. They want the dead bodies for the cameras. So be careful what you wish for when you say, well, what about the dead people and babies in Gaza or in Palestine and all that kind of stuff? Yeah. Who's responsible for that? Right now, from what I understand, I read a really cheeky article last night, where the top brass of Hamas, they're not even in Gaza. They're safe in Qatar right now, where they're being protected. They're pulling all the strings from Qatar, saying all to the young people that are between fighting age and even younger. We've seen the pictures. Palestinian kids being trained with automatic rifles and things like that. And they indoctrinate them and they say, Israel's the reason why you are poor, is the reason why you do not have your own nation and all that. And Israel is like, no, we're trying to make peace with you people. And we had land too. And you're only bent on the destruction of us. It's in their charter with Palestinians. Death to Israel. All Jews need to die or get out. That is our land. And that would just be, what would be Palestine be? It would just be another failed country in that region. The only thing that makes some of those countries successful is oil, but that's usually toward the south. But what would a Palestine country be that isn't Syria, Jordan, Iran, Iraq? It would just be another one. And there would be no freedom. There would be no freedom of expression. There would be no, freedom of sexuality or anything like that. So that is something to consider. Also, it's worth considering when people say, well, Palestine and Gaza is poor. Why is that? The Palestinians receive a lot of money internationally from you and me, particularly in the Gaza. They receive a lot of humanitarian aid, but a lot of that money doesn't go to anything humanitarian. It goes to the creation of weapons, particularly from Iran, which everybody knows. And a lot of those weapons uh, are snuck into the Gaza, and they use um, materials and whatnot to make rockets. And they just everything was fine a week ago, but Hamas knows that nothing's happening, so we gotta speed things up here. And they think this kind of action is gonna get sympathy for them, but I think they I hate to use this term because I don't even understand what it means, but I kind of do. But I hate the way people use it. They jumped the shark on this one. They bit off more than they could chew. They thought that these guerrilla tactics and whatever was just going to be like all the other ones. Right now, you got like a 50. Oh, I want to say 50-50. Before it was like whenever there was a conflict between the Palestinians and Israel, the majority of the people were like, oh, the hell with Israel. Palestine is victims of apartheid and oppression. Now I think slowly but surely, some people are like, hey, the big story. But then it's kind of hard to fake when you have the president of the United States actually coming out one day yesterday saying, well, I've confirmed that I've seen these images of, and then one day later, he walked it right back. His handlers. You didn't vote for Joe Biden. You voted for his handlers. Joe Biden only won because of some suspicious activities and ballot harvesting, and some people that just said no way for Trump. So he served his purpose. Now they just want him out. So it just depends. Where would you rather live? Would you rather live in a country like Iran? Because that would be what Palestine would be. They don't have elections. It would be a dictatorship, and it would be a pretty brutal one if you were homosexual, probably if you were a woman, probably if you were, but definitely if you were a Jew or a Christian. Certainly something to think about, when you see a lot of Palestinians and they talk a good game. They talk a good game. They say, look at all these bodies. Israel's committing war crimes and whatnot, but you got to see what's really going on. I mean, you can't just be going into a open air music festival and just mowing down civilians, and not a good look. Not a good look, Palestinians. Not a good look. And you're not going to get a lot of sympathy. You're probably going to get a lot from a few, I don't know, woke liberals in New York who go to New York University, whatever. Yeah, sure. But I think they really did it this time. Now, here's what needs to happen, in my opinion, in that sector. I'm not a diplomat or a negotiator or anything like that. But definitely what needs to happen is, I believe in a two-state solution. And so well, my son is coming in here now, and he's hang on. Yes, I'm haciendo un podcast. So, tú puedes mirarme tú puedes mirarme después, okay? Or mirar and then. Sorry, my son bothered me. Sorry. So, there is a two-state solution that I agree with. But why doesn't Israel, why are they kind of iffy on that? Well, what do you expect? What would happen if Palestine became a country tomorrow? What would be the consequences for the country of Israel? Now, Israel can't control the Palestinian territories. Now, Palestine can import anything they want into their countries. And they could just have attacks coming from Palestine all day and night, and the government could just say, well, that's not us, that's just some militants, some people that we don't represent, so I'm sorry, we can't do anything about it. And they would just let it happen. So that's why Israel is like, we would love to have a Palestinian country, no problem. But you gotta erase the Hamas, you gotta erase the Hezbollah in the north, you gotta erase your charter of death to Israel. You gotta recognize that Israel is a country, and you gotta share the land. Israel had a big chunk of land after I think the 7 Day War, and they had it all the way down to the Sinai Peninsula, and I think to a certain extent all the way up to in Lebanon. So for them to say, they haven't given land back, they have. They most certainly have. So, what would be the best solution? Okay, obviously, I mean, it would be best for the Palestinians. You know, they would say, okay, we're going to make an agreement. You can have the country of Palestine, but you have to declare that you will not be making terror aggression against the country of Israel. You have to change your charter to death of Israel. You have to recognize Israel as a partner country and go from there. That's the best solution. But there's militants within the Palestinians that are like, no, it's all ours. All our land is ours. Jews, get out. And so it's kind of hard. I mean, you have Bethlehem, Jerusalem. I mean, Jerusalem, Palestinians claim that Jerusalem is their capital, and the Jewish people say, nope, that's the Israeli capital. And so they'd have to split it. And I think it's kind of what they do now, in a way, but just split it like Berlin. And yeah, just have half the city Palestinian, half the city Israeli. It would be like, it'd be easy to make trade and negotiate with the two countries. Just pulling ideas out of a hat, and I'm sure smarter men and women have come up with ideas similar to this, but that's the only solution. Or you let militants that run and influence Palestinians to keep up with this kind of terrorist crap, because there is no moral equivalence between the two. When Israel attacks Gaza, they strategically attack an area that has attacked them, and they don't mess around. They level it. They give a little warning, and they say, get out. Hamas says to their people, nope, stay there. We need the dead bodies for the cameras. So there is no moral equivalence. Palestinians don't give any warning when they attack. Palestinians didn't show any quarter when they went into that music festival. Now they're saying, stop bombing us, or we're going to start killing hostages. How about you give up the hostages and Israel turns on the water and lights? How about that? And then come to the table and let's have a real peace agreement. Now, how does this affect the country of Chile? Well, what really freaks me out or frightens me is there's a lot of groups all around the world that feel that their land was colonized or taken or what have you. And that's something that happened centuries in the past, years in the past. Countries don't do that anymore. We've evolved. But you can't displace people who've been living in a particular country just because of the sins or the ignorance of their ancestors. Chile is a Chilean country. It's about the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. Chile is a Chilean country. That's deep. Chile will always be Chile. It's had different borders. It actually had the south of Argentina for some time before the Pacific War. But you're not going to change these things. You're not going to change borders. Borders have been set now, unless some people want to separate, like South Sudan or, there's enough separating going on in the world anyway. There's too many countries that want to become their own little country, and then those little countries want to become their own little country. And there's too much separation. We need to come together and have one big nation, or at least one nation per continent. How are aliens going to meet us if we're just a big bowl of Rice Krispies on the planet of different nations and cultures and countries, and it's just a big mess. And it's because power. People say, "Oh, it's because we want to maintain our traditions and our culture." And bullshit. Give me a break. You know, we need more countries to come together to form one big nation. That's my opinion. But until that happens, you're not going to change now. You know, people have evolved. We don't do any invasions or colonizations or anything like that anymore. Um, no, we don't do that anymore. And so, but that's why we've evolved. But we can't change history. If we go back and say, "Oh, we're going to give back the country back to who had the country of Chile before Chile," people say, "Well, the Mapuches." No, Spain. But then Spain will say, "Well, you have to give the country back to the Mapuche." But then the Mapuches would say, "Well, what were your borders?" And that's where the indigenous people of the Americas, they can't tell you. You know, they didn't have any maps that actually, you know, show the exact borders and then what was the territory outside of that. So that's really, I mean, they would just claim it. They would just say, "Well, that's mine too." It's the same thing that's happening in North America. They to say that the indigenous tribes of North America weren't fighting amongst themselves for territory. They were just a peaceful, you know, pipe smoking, peace, just loving the earth, water, and yeah, please, I got a bridge I want to sell you. You know, please. So everybody was taking lands and recovering lands and what have you. But if we kept going back and forth and back and forth and going back and back and back and back, lands back to their original owners, Jesus, we'll be going back to the dinosaurs. So let's just establish, do that anymore, and let's leave it at that. And the Mapuche people, they could have their own sovereign area, I suppose, but it's not like they're speaking their native language either. I mean, they were born, they do have Chilean identification cards. They are part of the Chilean society. So yeah, they do have ancestry of Mapuche Indians, and that's fine, but you're a citizen of the country of Chile too, whether you like that or not. But you can't, you know, what would be, you know, the end game of in the southern Patagonia area of, I don't know if it's the Patagonia area, but I think it's near Temuco. They say all that land is for the Mapuche. Similar thing that's happening in Palestine right now. They say, no, that's all land of Palestine. So what bothers me is, will the Mapuche someday use the strategies of the Palestinians? Right now, it's just, well, they're getting close. Before, it was like, well, they would just burn trucks, and then they started burning schools without kids in it. Not because they wouldn't do it, just because the police would arrive. They do it at night when no one's around. But they start burning schools, they burn churches, they're burning, well, you know, the Luke McKay situation where they burned in their house. And one lady who used to be their nana was a Mapuche woman, and apparently she was organizing some of the planning of their house at her house, and she got off scot-free because, you know, the judges, you know, different story. But I just hope, the only reason they haven't gone all out explosions and killing people and terrorist activities, which depends on the level of terror, is because they don't have the funding for it. Palestinians do. They get the funding from Iran. They get funding from all those rich Arab oil producing countries to make their weapons and whatnot. So the Mapuches don't. So that's the only reason they don't do it. But they have killed people. They have killed cameramen from TVN, the national Chilean news channel. They even killed one of their own that was just traveling on a bus or a van coming back from work, and they didn't realize it was one of their own, but they just shot at the van and killed one of their own. So they have done it. So that's why the Palestinian-Israeli conflict has some ramifications for Chile, because I see the same thing happening here. Fortunately, I don't think it's going to get that to that point, but hopefully not. Well, that's all I have for you today. It's been about 40 minutes and kind of tired. I'm going to go have another cup of tea. I hope you guys enjoyed my little broadcast, and I hope you learned something. So it would be good, I hope, to see more of you. And if you're seeing this on my YouTube channel, you know what I want? I want subscribers. You know how YouTubers act. They how to be a YouTuber. Well, you got to start your YouTube channel with "What's going on, everybody," and then they'll say something like, "Well, what do you think? Leave a comment," as if these YouTubers actually interact with their subscribers. But I'll tell you what, I don't have any subscribers yet. This is all new. So the only thing I think this would be special is because it's in English and it's related to Chile. So the only thing is, I'd like to have comments and things, and I'll try to interact with everybody. It's not that many people in Chile that speak English, so it shouldn't be that difficult. Pardon me. So it should be fun. So hopefully, if you're seeing this on my YouTube channel, I think um, I'd appreciate if you um, subscribe, and that would be great. Okay. Well, I shall